crash, you'll only hit it once. It's only a difference of right and wrong, isn't it? And the good numbers don't cost nothing, do they? Hey, if I participate in this fucking effort, I hope I'm going to get my gold disc at the end of this. Imagine that.
Why should I be right on dying? There's no reason for it. You've got to go sometime.
I'm not frightened of dying at all. But when you gotta go, you gotta go.
Dark Side of the Moon actually did change my life. I first heard that record when I was 10 years old, and I remember it as plain as day. I was at my cousin's house, and in his room on the floor was a record player. That record was on it, the cover was laying beside it. I was really intrigued by the cover, so I thought, well, I need to hear what this is about. And there was also a pair of headphones. So at 10 years old, I heard Dark Side of the Moon all the way through in headphones, and it blew my mind. That record starts out so interestingly with the sound collage, which was a fairly new type of art form. I think the Beatles opened the door to that on the White Album. Interestingly enough, Dark Side of the Moon was produced by Alan Parsons, who was an engineer on the some Beatles records at Abbey Road. So here comes this obscure band struggling to find their way without their lead guitarist and singer, Syd Barrett, who had already left the band. And they cut a record at Abbey Road, and nobody wanted to really handle them or knew what to do about them, so they gave the project to Alan Parsons. So he went from being a tape operator up to record producer, essentially. And they put this stunning album together, which is still one of the highest selling records of all time. Still sounds amazing. People still use that record to test their hi-fi systems. I do. I'll never forget when I first heard this music coming on with the sound collage, and then it just sort of opens up into this real airy, atmospheric breathe, and then, you get kind of used to that, like dipping your toe into the pool. You've got this interesting sort of travel section, and then as you move through the record, time comes on. You get that wonderful rototom drum solo, and the song kicks in, and it rocks. And then by the time you get to the guitar solo, I mean, my head was exploding. I have never heard anything like this. And at 10 years old, I just wasn't even ready for it. It just blew my mind. I've definitely not been the same. And I'd have to say that that's when I realized I needed to be a musician. I needed to play music. I needed to collect and own records. I wanted to be in a band. I absolutely never looked back from there. When I was 10 years old, I had already been taking piano lessons for a couple of years. And I enjoyed working on piano pieces and learning to play the piano. I was already enjoying that. And when I heard this record, I heard electric keyboards and especially synthesizers. And I was instantly fascinated with the sound of synthesizers. And as a result, I started looking for and buying almost any record if it had a synthesizer on it. I would go to the store, look on the back of the albums, and if they had any gear listed, if anything about a synthesizer, I bought it. But getting back to Dark Side of the Moon, there's a instrumental bit on side 2 that's just all these lush synthesizers with tape delay and just such a gorgeous piece that I was absolutely hooked. And I saved up my money and Probably I was maybe 17 or 18 by the time I had enough money to buy one, and I bought the Mini Moog that I still have today. Dark Side of the Moon, it's such a magical piece of work because it's got all these different flavors and textures on it. Things blended in that I had never heard in that combination before. Bits of gospel, bits of rock, bits of jazz, bits of electronic music, and of course Great Gig in the Sky. Who had ever done anything like that before? I mean, just every bit of that record was groundbreaking and magical. Even today, it's hard to say that it sounds dated. The recording is stellar, and I still, when I put it on, I want to hear it from start to finish. The lyrics are so timeless and poetic, and they're just easy to get. I mean, if you look at the lyric sheet for that record, it's just a few paragraphs. It's not a very wordy record, and all the messages are absolutely timeless. They can be applied to anybody living in any time and any place on the planet. And not very many people were approaching their writing that way, I don't think. The gospel-y bits, that was a real surprise to me. By the time you get to the big finale of Brain Damage that closes the record out, and the big gospel sound that they bring in just out of nowhere, as that record moves along, it just tends to continually build. And I'm telling you, it expanded my mind in so many ways. I couldn't stop listening to it. As soon as it got to the end of the record, I started over and listened to it again. And I did it every single day for years. I knew I had to play music at that moment. There was no going back.